to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch-Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Peggy Seegers-Braun, from the athletic director from Devine Savior Holy Angels High School, the all-girls high school in Milwaukee, also certified Master Athletic Administrator. Welcome to the podcast, Peggy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
I grew up born and raised in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and I went to high school at Catholic Memorial High School in Waukesha, and then I went on to college at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse.
And where did you, your first job was right out of college, or how long have you been at your current position?
Yeah, my first job, actually, I did an internship. I had a degree in physical education and health education at UW-La Crosse, and I did my internship actually at Catholic Memorial, where I went to high school. So I did the internship first semester, and then I stayed on part-time and taught there. And then I was able to get a full-time teaching and coaching job at University School in Milwaukee, which is a private school. At the time I was there, it was in Whitefish Bay, and then moved to River Hills. So that's where they're currently at. And then after that, then I actually got married in March, and my husband was looking in the paper. I was there for 4 years, and he was looking in the paper and he saw there was an opening for an athletic director at Devine Savior Holy Angels. And so he showed it to me because that's where you found jobs, was in the paper back then. And I wasn't a big change person. I loved University School Milwaukee. I was teaching and coaching and really enjoyed everything about the school. But I always kind of wanted to be an athletic director. And the athletic director there at the time was Lowell McDonald, and he was going to be there for a while. So I knew that opportunity would not present itself for a while. And so I was like, okay, I'll go in and interview. And I honestly walked in and I almost walked out because I was so nervous and wasn't sure, and went through the interview, and they offered it to me on the spot. And I was like, I'd never been an athletic director, just a teacher, coach. Didn't know what I was really getting into. Devine Savior Holy Angels was a big rival in high school of ours with Catholic Memorial. So I was like, I don't know if I can go there. But best decision I've ever made. I absolutely love it here. I've been here for 37 years. So 41 total in education, but 4 at University School Milwaukee, and then 37 here. And I like to say that it's all because of my husband, because I never would have been looking for a job had he not saw that in the paper.
Allow me to ask a follow-up on it, something totally unrelated. So you mentioned Whitefish Bay. So is that the same Whitefish Bay from the song Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald?
It could be if it's from Wisconsin. It's on the lake.
Yeah, it's
so
up on Lake Superior, so I assume it's the same one. So, all right, well, let's talk for a minute about, did you have a chance to play sports at all, youth sports, those types of things?
Yeah, so I graduated from high school in 1979. So I was lucky enough to just start Title IX in grade school. So I went to St. Joe's Catholic Grade School in Waukesha. And I believe it's a long time ago. I can't really remember, either 7th or 8th grade, we were able to play volleyball and basketball. And so I had the ability to do that. I come from a family of 6 children, and my oldest brother was a phenomenal athlete. So grew up kind of following him and watching him and, always wanting to be able to do that. But the opportunities as I was growing up really weren't there for girls. I did try to play on a boys' baseball team growing up, but when they kept throwing pitches at my head, I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. And so really, you grew up as a young female at that time, wanting to be a cheerleader because that was all there was for girls in high school. And then when I started in grade school, being able to play volleyball and basketball, then high school afforded the opportunity to do that as well. So I was able to play volleyball and softball in high school because I did end up being a cheerleader because that was something I always wanted to do growing up. And so I did those three things in high school. And then when I went to lacrosse, I actually played softball at lacrosse.
Okay.
So
Let's have you talk about some of the mentors and leaders you've had in your life, both as a young woman and then once you got into your AD role.
yeah, some mentors throughout my life, I would say first and foremost, my parents. I was blessed with really fantastic parents. Again, we grew up in a different time, so girl sports really were just at the beginning of things. But my mom always played softball when we were little with her friends. And so I got to go and watch her play. Both my parents bowled. And so, we'd go and watch them bowl. And my dad owned his own business. He was a excavator. He actually was 12 years older than my mom, and so he served in World War II. He was actually at the Battle of the Bulge, and they met, once he had been to war and back, and then had 6 kids. So my mom stayed home with us. But my dad had just this tremendous work ethic. And so I would say all 6 of us, all 6 of his children have just a tremendous work ethic. And so I credit both of them for the encouragement and the work ethic and that you can do anything. And then when I was in high school, my high school athletic director at Catholic Memorial, Greg Gamalski, was kind enough to kind of let me hang around and see how things worked as an athletic director. I'm super organized and I'm pretty detail oriented. So, I would help with some things like on a typewriter, typing the contracts because we didn't really have computers back then either. And did some things like that. And then my physical education teacher, Stephanie Pribble there, once they started to have a female athletic director, she kind of helped out with that. And so both were kind enough to help me along the way. And then I interned under Steph Pribble and again allowed me the opportunity to kind of see things. And then when I went to university school, Lowell McDonald was a great mentor for me. He played national ice hockey. He played professional hockey and then came back to USM and was the athletic director there. And he was so good to me. And, I coached 3 sports there. And he really also let me kind of see how this athletic director, what they do and how I could maybe do that someday. And then again, my husband showing me the way there. So I really came into the job with 0 experience, just little bits here and there of kind of how things worked, having played sports myself, kind of getting to know, like what you need to do. And so I kind of learned on the job, which, I don't even know. I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. And it was before computers. And, when I came to this job, I didn't have a phone in my office. I didn't have, a computer. We didn't have copy machines back then when we first started. I would sit on the floor in the main office and look up schools' names and addresses and phone numbers and things like that. So it's changed a lot. But I also had Sister Virginia was my principal here, and she really just let me run with the program, didn't micromanage me. I really got to form it the way I wanted, hire the coaches that I wanted and just kind of build the program from there. So pretty blessed in my journey that way.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. Let me ask you a follow-up, if it's possible here. You mentioned your dad was in World War II. In the Battle of the Bulge, did he talk? I mean, I've we've never had someone on the podcast whose father or mother was in the Battle of the Bulge. So, any stories from that?
Well, honestly, he never talked about his war experience. I think that generation really didn't.
Mm,
He was uh 18, 19 when he was, started and um he only had an eighth grade education because he grew up on a farm. And so then when the war started, he enlisted and went over to serve his country. And he must have been, well, he was very bright for having no formal education besides an eighth grade, and he became a radio operator. And so he was, the one on the Jeep that would communicate with the planes. And he actually was at the Battle of the Bulge with Patton at the time. And that's the one story. The only time he really talked about it was after we had seen the movie Saving Private Ryan. We're what,
right.
like, were you there? Like, what was this like? And he, like I said, he never really talked. I think he saw some horrendous things and went through some, pretty trying things. But like I said, he never talked about it. He said, we just went there, we had each other's back, we did our job. And the one story he did tell was that there was a bridge out and they had to rebuild the bridge so they could get across. And General Patton turned to him and said, Warren, take the Jeep over the bridge. And he was like, uh,
Oh,
hopefully it holds. So, but it did. And he made it back. Um, but like I said, he didn't, I believe he did some super brave things and he had a true sense of duty to his country. And he said you just had each other's backs and you did what you needed to do. And, you know, um, like he never really talked about it. I think, like I said, I personally think he went through a lot of and saw a lot of things that weren't
sure.
great. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question, Peggy. What's your biggest failure or disappointment, and what did you learn from it?
Um, you know, it's hard because I don't like to keep the failures in my brain, and I've been doing this a long time, but if I had to pick one, I would say way at the beginning of my career because I really didn't know what I was doing. And it was kind of trial and error, and the programs were nowhere near what they are now. So it allowed me to kind of have that trial and error. But I would say probably my first hire was a pretty big one. When I came to the job, I needed to hire a new basketball coach. And um, I would say I hired somebody, but I would call it a failure because after about a year, yeah, I had to find somebody else. But what I learned from that is that you really need to get a huge pool of candidates when possible, that you have to let everybody know you have the opening, that you have to, go out and seek information from your parents and student athletes, like who do you know? Because I find over the years the best coaches usually are from some kind of connection that people have. And so word of mouth, I think, is a great way to get some really great people in. So I've gotten much better at it, I
Thank you
will
for
say.
sharing. Let me ask you about the job of athletic director. And you talked about sitting on the floor in your early days, getting schools. So you've been there for 37 years. Talk about the changes since you first started as an
Oh
AD
my gosh.
a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like night and day. I look back and I share this with the girls at school all the time. Like, you don't understand like the amount of technology that I've had to learn in my role here over the years. As I said, I started no phone in the office, no directories, just a phone book, and the girls don't even know what a phone book is. And, looking up schools and trying to make connections and just everything you had to do. You sent contracts through the mail and you got things back through the mail. And then when the fax machine was invented, it was like, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then that soon was like, oh my gosh, I can't stand the fax machine anymore. So uh, yeah, the job has changed, the expectations have changed. The amount of technology is probably number one that has changed over the years, and adapting to that and growing with it. And just the amount of education, expectations of parents, club sports and kids. I mean, gone are the days when, you played 3 sports and just during the seasons. And now everybody plays club and, year round, and they don't necessarily play as many sports as they could, which is sad for me as somebody that's been in the, profession for so long. But that's just the way things are now. So
Let's have you talk for a minute. So talk about WADA, how you got involved in the Wisconsin Association, and then obviously how you got involved in the NIAAA.
sure. So WADA has been around a long time. I've always been a member of WADA for 37 years. We actually, when I started, we had private school organization, which was called WISA, and then WADA. And then eventually the state association, they all joined under the WIAAA. So the two athletic directors associations joined together as well. So I was involved in both organizations. WISA, I was the president of that one near the end before we merged, and then joined WADA. And I love learning. And so, the conferences and the networking and getting to know people. I eventually got involved as a gender rep. We have gender reps and then representatives, and then there's the executive board. So I ran as a gender rep and was elected, I can't even tell you how many years ago, but I served on that in that role for 4 years. And then I was ran for the representative. So then I served on that for 4 years. There are 2 4-year limits or whatever. I think I'm kind of a dinosaur. Most people don't do that path where you did 4 years of this, 4 years of this. And then I ran to be on the executive board. And that was one failure I had as well. I ran and I did not win. And so I thought I still had a year left on the advisory council or as a rep. And then so I finished that, and then Jeremy Schlitz from Madison Memorial said, you need to run again. You should run again for president. And I was like, I don't know. It's pretty tough when you run for something and you don't succeed.
Sure.
And so I don't think that had ever been done before, where somebody didn't win and then ran again the next year. But I got to thinking, I'm like, I tell kids all the time, like, you don't make a team, it doesn't matter, go work at it again and try out again, try again. That you shouldn't give up, that you should always pursue those things. And so I'm like, well, I should probably walk the talk. And so I ran and won. And so then I was on the executive board for 4 years. So I did kind of a 12-year stint on the board or with the leadership organization of that. And it was the best thing. I loved every second of it. The one thing I did with the NIAAA then, when I didn't win that year, I was like, well, if WADA doesn't want my service, then I'm going to, see if I can't get on a committee with the NIAAA, which I had tried to do for many years. It was really tough to get on a committee back
Right.
in the day. I think because so many people, there were less committees probably, and so many people wanted to be on them. So at when I did not get onto the board of WADA, then I put my name in, and lo and behold, I got appointed to the awards committee. Um, and then I was also on the executive board, so I was doing both things at the same time. So it was a little busy time in my life, but I loved every second of it. And I actually served on the awards committee. Normally, it's a 6-year kind of stint on that committee. And then I was voted or appointed a vice chair. So I got a couple extra years, and then you have a year of shadowing. So I just finished up kind of my 9th year and will roll off the awards committee. Loved every second of the awards committee. It is a tremendous amount of work. That committee really puts a lot of time in because you're grading all the candidates for the Kovaleski and the DSA award during like April and June. And then when you go to the commit or when you go to the conference, then you have a number of meetings, plus you do all the photo shoots before the awards banquets and you help with the banquets. So you're super busy during that. But I loved it. You really get to know the people on that committee really well. And so I've formed some great friendships with people from all over the country because I was on that. Plus, you get to meet all the award winners and their families, and I really I love serving people, and so that committee was perfect for me because it's really all servant leadership there. So
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing. I'll just point this out that you and I have something in common because years ago, so this is in the 2000s, I was on the awards committee for
oh
almost the same amount of time as you, moved up to vice chair and then to chair before I went on the board of directors. And so I just smile when you talk about the awards committee because it's dear to my heart also. So thanks for
yeah,
mentioning that.
I think anybody that has served on that really has that same, because you put so much time and effort into it, and you really get to know people well. And so I did not know that. So we're kindred spirits there.
Let's talk for a minute about two legends in the state of Wisconsin. That would be Dr. John and Jim Teff. Obviously, well, more legends than that. Obviously, you got Greg Smith, recently retired executive director, and Jeff Sitz, now the current executive director. Any stories about those gentlemen or interactions you'd care to
All
share with us?
all legends, yeah. Dr. Olson obviously just was phenomenal. Like he was just fantastic and such an inspiration, and just a great person. Jim Teff, I knew when I first started the switch to the WIAA. They gave us mentors, even though I had been an athletic director for a long time. And Jim Teff was my mentor. And, he was so involved with the NIAAA and such a great person as well. And so very inspiring as well. Um, Greg Smith, obviously a legend. I worked closely with him on the board, with the WADA board, and really has moved Wisconsin forward with everything that we do, as well as his time on the board at the national level, and as the executive director. And then Jeff Sitz and I have been friends since we started because we were in WISA together, which was the private schools. And then and we're not that far, so we compete with each other. And actually, Jeff's wife and I coached volleyball against each other way back in the day. So great connections. Love the Sitzes, and he has always been somebody I aspire to be like. Um, just a true servant leader, kind, you know, caring person. I can't say enough good things about Jeff Sitz and his wife Karen. Like both of them have been such good friends to me. So we've been pretty blessed. I've been pretty blessed to have people, around. Sorry. Um, surround me that have been really great people that have helped me along the way. So really great people from Wisconsin.
Thank you. Let's have you share for a minute your thoughts about the most recent conference in Austin.
I love every conference. I have been going for, I don't even know, probably 30 plus years. Um, but the conference for me, this one in Austin was super busy because of the awards committee, all the things I had to do with that. And I always try to take a class when I'm there as well. I apologize. Um, I don't know how to turn my phone off. It's sorry. Now I forgot where we were.
About a conference in
Oh,
Austin.
okay. Yeah. So I always try to take a class when I'm also go to the conferences because I love the LTI classes. They're usually taught by the people that wrote the classes. So I really enjoy taking them. And I love to learn. So I just continue to take classes and learn all I can about this profession. Um, but I just felt like I was busy all the time with all the things that I went to and the mini sessions and the meet and greets and all those things. And so I find it to be just a very invigorating, and it makes me like it rejuvenates me when I go to the conference because it just inspires you to be better. And you see all these people that are doing great things and you aspire to be like them. And so that's why I love the conference and I would never miss it. I always encourage athletic directors to go to that. And then once they go, they go every year. They're like, oh, had I known. I'm like, well, I've been telling you that, that
Yeah.
it's really great and you need to go, and you just learn so much and you meet so many people, and it's such a great experience. So well worth the time. It is not at a great time of the year, especially for a female in charge of Christmas at your house, but
Right.
yeah, it's well worth the time. So
Let me ask you this next question and make sure that I ask it properly. And everyone knows that the director world is semi-dominated by males. And so I want you to talk about being a successful female AD, talk about any of the obstacles that may have happened and some of the positive experiences that have happened to you along the way.
yeah, it's interesting. When I first started, it was totally male dominated field. But, I was at an all-girls school, and so I had that opportunity. I may not have been hired at a co-ed school. I don't know because I never attempted to do that. But so I'm going to share with you, I went to the first conference meeting in our new conference when we joined with the public schools. Before, when we had the private schools, it was all female athletic directors and male athletic directors, because I think what happened with Title IX, they started and the male athletic directors were already in place. And so they're like, oh, we're going to have female sports now, so we'll have female athletic directors. And that was great because that's when I was young and just starting. So it was really a group of women that supported each other through kind of this journey. But then when we went into the public school conference, excuse me, I would sit at these meetings and I was the only female in the room, which never bothered me. I live in a house full of boys. I have two boys and, my husband growing up and brothers. And so I never really thought about it. And I never viewed myself as a female athletic director. I just always viewed myself as an athletic director. Um, but I was in a meeting once and everybody's talking and I say something, I add to and they're all like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, honest to God, the guy next to me says the exact same thing 2 minutes later, and they're all like, oh, that's a great idea. And I was like, really? Like, come on, guys. And so I had a number of those. And I've heard over the years that, it really takes three females in a room to be heard in a room full of men. And I'm not going to lie, I think I've proved that point a couple times. They are getting better though, 100% better. I think some of it because I've been doing this so long, you just became like the old athletic director in the room. And so, you got that respect that way. But I will
Sure.
say when I first started off, it was kind of one of those like, okay, we'll just, pat her on the head and we'll
Mhm.
just go about our business. But then I think they kind of figured out I knew what was going on. But I also made relationships with great people like Jeff Sitz and, Jim Teff and some of those people. And so once you form those relationships, then that respect, starts coming. And now, like I said, last or a couple years ago, we actually had 3 women in our conference, women athletic directors. And so times have changed a lot. There are a lot more females in the athletic director role. And I think that males have come a long way too in terms of respect for other females in the profession. So it's been a journey though, a fun one, but
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that insight. What's the favorite part of your job, Peggy?
I think the favorite part of my job is seeing the growth. I love being in an all-girls school because I really want to help, young women become the best that they can be. And so the emphasis in athletics is on their sports. There's not, the football team taking all the credit or whatever. Like it's all about them. And so I really see these young girls come in and they don't really know who they are or what they're capable of, and they just find their way, and they by senior year they grow so much into confident, capable young women that really go out and change the world. And just to go on that journey with them, to see the growth and to see the confidence that they build, and that they push themselves beyond what they thought they were capable of. So that to me is one of the best parts of the job, as well as coaches, to see coaches develop. I've hired some coaches over the years that haven't had any varsity experience, and so you just kind of work with them and mentor them and bring them along, and they turn into like fabulous coaches as well. And so it's so gratifying for me to see the growth in people. And I like to be in the background, and I love to see like student athletes and coaches shine, and just to kind of, help them along the way a little bit. So that's the part of the job I love, and it keeps me going.
Let's finish with a couple of questions. The first one being, you've got 2 suggestions for a brand new athletic director, and they need to follow Peggy's suggestions in order to be successful. What would your 2 suggestions be?
First and foremost, and I mentor a lot of younger ADs, I always tell them, surround yourself with great people. Like you have to put yourself around people that are better than you, because you will rise to that level. Um, you are the sum of the people that you hang out with. And so the athletic director position is lonely in a school because you're usually the only one. So you have to get out, and that would be my second suggestion, to join WADA, to join the NIAAA, to go to those conferences, to make connections. Because when you have a relationship with somebody, it's really hard for them, like if you need a game or you need a favor or you have a question or something, for them to say no if they know you. And so form those relationships and learn from other people, but just surround yourself with great people. That's the biggest thing that I can ever tell you. And then one word of advice I always give to young ADs as well is something Sister Virginia, my very first principal here, taught me. And she said, when you're having conflict with people, or, you have to approach them about something, the best phrase to start with is, help me understand. rather than why did you do this or why didn't you do that, or just help me understand why you didn't do this, or help me understand why you chose to do that. And that to me it makes it less confrontational and more of a conversation. And so I pass kind of those words of wisdom on to people too. Like those are things that have served me very well in my profession.
Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing. We'll finish with this. Peggy, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I was gonna say, like, I was thinking about this and I didn't know you were gonna ask me what it would like to be in a room full of men, athletic directors. But I don't know. Like, what else should you have asked me? Maybe what I do to stay balanced in my life or sane, or how do I take care of me and all the other people I take care of?
Well, share with our audience how you keep that balance and take care of yourself.
Well, for those that know me, I'm a walker. Like, so I get up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, 365 days a year, 22 degrees below zero in Wisconsin sometimes, and I walk before school. And I also combine that because I got to get 2 for 1 when I spend time. So that's when I pray in the morning for my children, my coaches, my student athletes, whoever. I don't listen to music. I am in thought about other people and how they can be helped. So I walk every morning because, as you know, as an athletic director, your afternoons are not in your control. And so if I didn't do that, I wouldn't get any exercise. So before school, I walk 4.5 miles. It's dark. But it gets my day going. It helps me focus. And then I come into school and I hit the ground running. So that is how I do it. I would suggest to any athletic director that you need to get some kind of physical activity in your life, because it's too easy to get caught up in things and to eat poorly and spend all your time doing this or not eat at all. And so to take that time, and if you can't fit it in, you can always fit it in earlier in the morning. So.
Well, on that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Peggy Seegers-Braun, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Devine Savior Holy Angels High School. Peggy, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Hutch, for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.